There are some moments in life that become etched in your memory forever. Moments that challenge everything you thought you knew and force you to reevaluate not just the people around you, but your entire understanding of relationships. For me, this moment came when my husband Tom was out of town on a business trip, and our world, at least the world I thought I knew, shifted in ways I could never have anticipated. What happened that afternoon with my son-in-law, Jason, is something I still struggle to fully comprehend, but it has taught me lessons I will carry with me for the rest of my life. This is a story of betrayal, emotional turmoil, and ultimately the complexities of human relationships. And I assure you, you won't believe what happened next. It was a calm Wednesday afternoon, one that I expected to pass like any other. Tom had left early for a business trip, and my children had their own lives to manage. My daughter, Lily, had mentioned she would be coming by with Jason after work. Their visits had become more sporadic over the years, with everyone busy navigating their own routines. But I was looking forward to it. It was a chance to connect, to share a quiet meal, and to remind myself how much I appreciated my family, even as they grew busier. I had always prided myself on keeping the house in order. Tom and I had built a life together, and part of my joy came from making sure that everything was in its place. Dinner was on the stove, and the living room was cozy, ready for their arrival. As I waited, I glanced over some old family photos, thinking about the years that had passed. But even in that moment of quiet nostalgia, I could not have predicted the shock that was about to unfold. Jason arrived first, as Lily had been delayed in traffic. He greeted me with his usual warm smile, his eyes a little tired from the day, but nothing that seemed out of the ordinary. We chatted briefly as I finished setting the table, and Jason offered to help. This was not unusual. He had always been considerate, always willing to lend a hand. But there was something different in his manner today, a quiet restlessness that seemed to hang in the air around him. He was moving too quickly, speaking too loudly, almost as though trying to distract me from something. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, Jason had always been a little intense at times, a little quick to jump into action. But as the evening wore on, I began to notice more. His laughter, usually genuine, seemed forced. His smiles were too wide. He was standing a little too close, offering unsolicited help in places he normally wouldn't. I chalked it up to him perhaps feeling stressed from work. Or maybe it was the pressure of being away from Lily for too long. But there was something in the back of my mind that gnawed at me, urging me to pay attention. Then came the phone call. Jason excused himself to take a call, stepping into the other room. I continued with dinner preparations, but something about the way he disappeared into the hallway made me pause. It wasn't unusual for someone to take a call in private, but Jason had never been secretive about his conversations before. This time I overheard snippets of his conversation, too little to understand everything, but enough to stir the growing unease in my gut. The tone of his voice, the low murmurs, the hushed words. When he returned, his expression was different. Gone was the frantic energy from earlier, replaced by a calm, almost resigned demeanor. He apologized for taking so long and quickly rejoined the conversation with me. But my mind was racing. Who was he talking to? Why had he been so secretive? The feeling of something being terribly wrong only deepened, but I told myself that it was probably nothing. After all, what could possibly happen during an ordinary dinner? When Lily arrived, I was relieved, thinking that whatever was bothering Jason might just be his imagination. She hugged me warmly, settling into her usual spot beside him. But something was still off. The tension was palpable, but neither of them mentioned it. For a moment, it felt like everything was normal, and I allowed myself to believe that it was. The evening was nearing its end when Jason, in an almost uncharacteristic move, asked if we could talk privately. I was taken aback. Jason had always been upfront with me, and we had always shared an open line of communication. But something about his request made me anxious. We stepped into the kitchen, and there, without warning, Jason began to speak in a tone that I could hardly recognize. "I've been carrying something heavy for a while now," Jason began, his voice shaking, "and I need to get it off my chest before it destroys everything. I owe it to you to tell you the truth." The words that followed were a whirlwind, a revelation that left me breathless. Jason confessed that he had been involved in an affair. But it wasn't just any affair. It was with someone who had been a close friend of mine. The betrayal cut deeper than I can express. How could he do this? How could someone I had trusted and welcomed into my home betray me in such a profound way? He admitted that this affair had been ongoing for months, and what hit hardest was the realization that Lily had no idea. Jason begged for forgiveness, but his words felt hollow in that moment. I was stunned, frozen by the sheer gravity of what he had confessed. My heart sank as I tried to process the horror of the situation. What kind of man was he? What kind of person would do this to someone they loved? For the next few days, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. Jason's confession felt like a betrayal of everything I'd believed about my family. I knew that I couldn't keep this from Lily. No matter how much I wanted to protect her, she deserved to know the truth. But the thought of watching her suffer, of seeing her world shatter, was almost too much to bear. I spent sleepless nights pondering my next steps. Should I confront Lily immediately? Or should I wait for Jason to confess to her? What was the right thing to do? My mind felt like it was in a constant loop, overwhelmed by the complexity of the situation. In the end, I knew one thing. I could not, in good conscience, keep this from her. She had to hear it from me or Jason. Either way, it was inevitable. The conversation with Lily was one of the most painful moments of my life. She was shocked, heartbroken, and angry. How could Jason, the man she had loved and trusted, do something so heinous? It was impossible for her to fathom, as it had been for me. The tears, the questions, the disbelief. It was all too much for her to process in a single sitting. I sat with her as she cried, offering what little comfort I could, but I knew that no words would fix what had been broken. Jason eventually came clean to her, admitting everything. It was a devastating conversation that left both of them in pieces. But amidst the heartbreak, there was a glimmer of hope. Jason was willing to do whatever it took to rebuild the trust he had shattered. And Lily, though deeply hurt, decided that she wanted to give him a chance to make amends. They sought therapy, worked through their pain, and slowly began to rebuild their marriage. But things would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effect of Jason's actions spread through the family. Everyone was affected. Our entire family was forced to confront uncomfortable truths and hidden tensions. But what I had feared most, losing my family, did not happen. Instead, we became closer, more connected, and more willing to face the hard truths. Jason worked tirelessly to regain Lily's trust, and though the scars would never completely fade, they found a way forward. I too found healing in my own way. The pain of betrayal was not something that could be fixed overnight, but with time, understanding, and the love of family, I began to forgive both Jason and myself for not seeing the signs sooner. Looking back on that afternoon, I can hardly believe the turn my life took. It was a moment that shattered my illusions, but it was also a moment that taught me the power of truth and the resilience of the human heart. Sometimes betrayal comes from the most unexpected places, but in those moments, we have a choice: to stay broken or to heal. Though my husband wasn't home that day, His absence became the backdrop to a truth I had to confront alone. A truth that ultimately brought my family closer together, even as it initially tore us apart. It was a painful journey, but one that I wouldn't trade for the lessons it imparted. Life is fragile. Relationships are complex. And trust is both a gift and a challenge. But the most important lesson I've learned through all of this is that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. It's the power of truth, love, and the willingness to forgive that ultimately guides us through the darkest of times.